Welcome back to the Chronicles. We've recently seen Jesus arrested. He's had a sham trial. Peter has denied him at the cock has crowed, and Peter's broken down as he remembered Jesus' prophecy. And now we're back with Jesus and the chief priests. It's the early morning, and we see what's going to happen in verse 1 of chapter 15. Very early in the morning, the chief priests with the elders, the teachers of the law, and the whole Sanhedrin made their plans. So they bound Jesus, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate. "Are you the king of the Jews?" asked Pilate. "You have said so," Jesus replied. The chief priests accused him of many things. So again Pilate asked him, "Aren't you going to answer? See how many things they are accusing you of." But Jesus still made no reply, and Pilate was amazed. Now it was the custom of the festival to release a prisoner whom the people requested. A man called Barabbas was in prison with the rebels who had committed murder in the uprising. The crowd came up and asked Pilate to do for them what he usually did. "Do you want me to release to you the king of the Jews?" asked Pilate, knowing that it was out of self-interest that the chief priest had handed Jesus over to him. But the chief priest stirred up the crowd to get Pilate to release Barabbas instead. "What shall I do then with the one you call the king of the Jews?" Pilate asked them. "Crucify him," they shouted. "Why? What crime has he committed?" asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, "Crucify him." Wanting to satisfy the crowd, Pilate released Barabbas to them. He had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified.
Yep, here we go again. And you've got these chief priests, these religious people, and they're all sort of acting as if they care about justice, but there's no real thought of justice, just a sham.
Yeah.
Early in the morning, all that stuff again, bringing him to Pilate. And you've seen this before, but, in all of this, the one that seems to have a measured stance and his head together is Jesus. And he's the one who's going to be crucified.
Yeah.
So they bring him to Pilate, who's the governor, Roman governor. Not a pleasant man if you read his history. He asked the question, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Fair enough question.
Well, it's an interesting question because the Pharisees have obviously spun it. Because if they said to him, "This guy's the Messiah," that he'd be like, "What does that mean? That doesn't mean anything to me." But it's interesting that they use the word king because they're trying to sell it to Pilate. This is someone who is trying to claim your authority.
Yeah.
Oh, but actually, authority should be with you.
Yeah. Someone who's an insurrectionist who's going to... But they let an insurrectionist go.
Yeah.
This is such a nonsense.
It's madness.
They let Barabbas, who really was involved with the rebellion, go. And they're trying to claim that Jesus is a rebel.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Brilliant. So he asked that question, and I guess... It's not a hard question. It's just sort of, "Are you the king of the Jews?" sort of thing. And so Jesus isn't going to take that question that seriously in answering him. We know that if he said to Jesus, "Look, who are you? Tell me about yourself." Jesus would have said.
Yeah. But
here it's just a sort of get him out the way almost, and Jesus says, "You have said so." It's a great reply. It's what you said.
Yeah. I didn't say that, really.
Yeah. Yes. And then the chief priests accuse him, and then Pilate says, "Look, there's lots of these accusations. You know what this is going to lead to. This is going to lead to an extraordinarily painful death.
Yeah.
So this is serious. Are you taking this seriously, Jesus?"
Yeah.
By not answering it. But he doesn't answer, and then it says Pilate is amazed by this.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's unusual for chief priests to come to him anyway with a prisoner. I mean, I don't know how often that happened. Probably not that often. But even more amazing is that this guy seems to not be wriggling out of it. It feels like if Jesus didn't want to be here, it would be very easy for him to say a few things and to be let off the hook in a sense.
Because Pilate knows it's all about self-interest.
Yes.
Even though Pilate was a horrible man, he could see how horrible they were.
Yeah.
And it's all about self-interest.
Yeah. I mean, even in verse sort of 1, it says they made their plans. It's all very rubbing your hands together, like in self-interest. Oh, yeah.
Then we come to this amazing, and it is an extraordinary scene where there's this sort of releasing or custom of releasing a prisoner on these feast days. And then there's this, do you want this Barabbas, who really is a murderer and a rebel, who's done that, he's in prison, he's waiting to be executed, or do you want Jesus that you're claiming all your false things? And they shout out, we want Barabbas released.
Crazy that.
And Jesus crucified. And even when they're asked, what crime has he done? They will not, then they just shout out. It's just a mob. Crucify him, crucify him. There's no reasoning, no thinking, no care for justice.
The only person who's had a succinct sort of argument against Jesus is himself.
Yes.
When he's in the court and he says, I am the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One, and you will see the Son of Man sitting. Everything else before and after that has just been an incoherent mess of words and evidence.
And so they ask, and this, I mean, I love this Barabbas thing because Barabbas is the guilty one and Jesus is not guilty. And Jesus is going to go in the place of Barabbas to set the guilty one free. And I think it has to be, although it's a true story and it really happened, God has placed it there to show us this is exactly what Jesus is doing on the cross. This is why he came. This is why he's calm. This is what they may have their plans, God has his plan. You meant it for harm, God means this for good. God is going to take and release the guilty ones. And it's such a beautiful picture that you can't get around this. Right. Here I am Barabbas, I am on death row. I am guilty of high treason against God, not just against sort of Pilate or Roman Empire, of being an utter rebel. And I'm set free, and Jesus goes to the cross. It's got to be that, isn't it?
I mean, you would love, wouldn't you, for Barabbas to become a Christian following this?
I wonder
to be the first man, to represent sort of God's people in that sense. I mean, it's speculation, really, isn't it? But like you say, that is us. We are the ones.
Barabbas was walking around. Think I'm only here because that bloke took my place.
Yeah. I mean, it's the best sermon illustration of your life, isn't it?
Yeah.
You were going to die, but Jesus took your place.
Yeah, absolutely. And so they shout out, crucify him. That's what we do with the Son of God. We would rather have a murderer in his place. And then, of course, in the truth is that we will go, he will take our place. And he's handed over. And Pilate has him flogged and handed over to be crucified. He just doesn't know what to do, does he?
There's mob mentality here, isn't there? Because the crowd wouldn't necessarily... I mean, maybe the crowd didn't really know too much what was going on. This isn't... But the crowd are stirred up by the priests and the Pharisees. So there's a thing here, there's a message here for us. Who are we listening to? Who's whispering in our ears? Because we're so easily influenced and stirred up. We get so offended by things that, an hour before we wouldn't have cared about. This crowd, without the Pharisees there, probably would go, oh, well, Barabbas is obviously the murderer. We don't want him to be walking around, do we? But now they're so quickly changing and they just shout all the louder. It's quite scary, isn't it?
It is very scary because, I mean, you certainly get that happening on social media and stuff, don't you? I'm cancelling you. I'm not listening to your arguments. It's just you don't completely follow what I follow. I'd rather have Barabbas than him. There's no thought. It's just sort of mob mentality. And we are like this. This is, I think, that's the thing. When you read the Bible, it's not like a religious book, is it? It's full of real people. And we are like this. And we're like this to God, instead of listening to God. Well, why does this happen? Why have we got corona? Why have we got this? Why does Thingy Bob die here? Instead of listening, we're just sort of crowd mentality, mocking him. And we would do this to Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think we better finish there.